terrorism advisory organization inside the U.S. Army called the Asymmetric Warfare Group. Now, they've determined some factors, a smell test, if you will, to find out if members of the military have become terrorists. Warning signs include, quote, peculiar discussions, complaints about bias, or people who are socially withdrawn or are frustrated with, quote, mainstream ideologies. Now, risk factors for radicalization include social networks and youth. So basically, let's connect some dots here. If you're in the military and you use Facebook, you have a higher propensity to turn against your coworkers and your government. Now, I guess we shouldn't be surprised by this. It was, after all, just a few months ago that Brandon Robb, a member of the U.S. Marine Corps, was taken into custody for his Facebook posts.
You will not violate my rights.
Here he is being taken from his Virginia home by local authorities and the FBI. They arrested him back on August 16th after the FBI found his post to be anti-American and, quote, terrorist in nature. Robb was initially taken to a psychiatric hospital against his will. He's since been released, but his case is one that sheds light on a larger trend here. The U.S. government cracking down on certain types of speech by members of the military. Brandon's attorney is John Whitehead. He joins me now from Charlottesville, Virginia, to break down what this could mean on a larger scale. And John, what do you make of the results of this report?
Well, again, if you're on a social network such as Facebook and you say something the government doesn't like, it can get you in a lot of trouble. With Brandon Robb, I mean, you had the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, the local police arrive and arrest him, and he asked what he did, and they said controversial post on Facebook. He was put in a mental institution. Luckily, we found a judge that let him out within a week, but a lot of people disappear. So it seems here that if you're socially withdrawn, you don't have like close family members, that's one of the so-called risk factors, or you're participating in chats on Facebook and you appear to be anti-American. Again, these are all interpretations someone has to come up with. What is anti-American? You don't like the way you're against the war in Afghanistan? Well, I know a lot of people say, well, that's anti-American. I say, no, that's free speech. So what we're really dealing with here, I think, is the right to express yourself and not have the government categorize you as a weirdo because you happen to disagree.
Well, and let's remember here, a lot of people, I have a lot of friends in the military, and Facebook is one outlet for them that they use to stay in touch with their families, that they use, you know, to look at pictures of their children, of their friends, of their college buddies, to sort of stay connected while they're so far away. I mean, it seems to me just a little bit ironic that that would, you know, also be a sign of somebody who could turn radical.
Yeah, it's a risk. Again, it's one of the risk factors they look at to see if you're going to become a terrorist, which is crazy because, you know, as we know now, everybody participates in Facebook. But I tell people today, and I'm really serious about this, when I get what I consider to be a Facebook post, they're joking around or something, I say, don't say that, because as your viewers may not know, and some may know, the National Security Agency has a facility in Utah now that downloads 1.6 million bits of information from the internet every day. So they're putting these things in electronic files. They can be used against you later if you want to become a judge or whatever. So I think what we're seeing is the chilling of free speech. People are going to be very nervous. If you read, well, I have a copy of the risk factors here. I mean, you're frustrated with mainstream ideologies. That makes you a weirdo or a terrorist. It doesn't. It makes Woody Allen look like a terrorist. It's ridiculous.
Now, this is a little tricky. I don't want to undermine this. The study was commissioned in part in response to that deadly shooting at Fort Hood by Major Nidal Hasan. Most people remember he killed 13 people back in 2009. The government obviously has a responsibility to investigate,
Sure,
to try to better, you know, detect early signs of radical thinking. So, John, let me get your take on this. What do you think would be a better response?
Well, the FBI did a very careful study of the school shooters, and what they came up with, there's no profile of a school shooter. So you can't profile what we might consider to be insane people, because most of the time, there are exceptions, they hide it. They're very, very good at that. So the problem I see is when I see with schools cracking down on zero tolerance behavior of a kid shooting a spit wad, the kid with the gun's going to get through eventually. In the military, if you're focusing on people who don't have close family ties, or they may not like the war we're fighting, the person I think that you should really be watching who is hiding all this is going to get through. So what they're doing, they're focusing on minors, and the majors are the problem. So I see these checklists all the time. People are people. They're human beings. You can't put people in straitjackets and say, here's your perfect profile. Like I said, the FBI could not come up with one.
I want to talk a little bit about your client, Brandon Robb. From what I understand, he posted lyrics from songs on his Facebook page. He said some things critical of the government and was taken from his home against his will to a psychiatric institution. First, John, what's the latest in his case? And also kind of outline some of the lessons to be learned here.
Yeah, he was taken away for his controversial post. He was never arrested, they say, although he was handcuffed. That's an arrest. They didn't file an arrest warrant against him or search warrant. He doesn't own a rifle or a gun. What we're doing now is we're preparing to file a civil rights lawsuit on his behalf against the government because his rights were violated, not only First Amendment, but his Fourth Amendment rights. His statements were made on a private grouping. So somehow the FBI got into his private Facebook page and read the information without a search warrant. So that's a real problem. I think the lessons to learn here is that when government gets together with certain groups, maybe psychologists, and comes up with these so-called checklists, what we're seeing is they don't work and they won't work. And the thing that I emphasize to people, the First Amendment is a way for people to express themselves. And I tell government officials, don't bottle that up. Don't make people go into hiding, because that's how you do get terrorists. If they're afraid to go on the street corner, I'd rather have a Nazi on the street corner preaching his gospel than somewhere in a basement making a bomb. So what I'm saying is the First Amendment's really important. The government should promote free speech and not limit it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I used to have a friend in the U.S. Army, did 2 tours in Iraq, and he used to always joke, and he said, you know, I'm going to fight for everybody's freedom, even though I don't get to have any freedom of my own. It's tough because a lot of these guys, they're on the front lines, they're seeing a lot of things, and it's true. They come back and they can't necessarily voice any sort of, you know, a disgruntled thought that they might have about what's going on in these countries when, in fact, they know more about it than anyone here in the country.
Yeah, I've had a lot of veterans contact me, and they're going over to Afghanistan and Iraq, and they're coming back, and they're saying we shouldn't be over there. And they're going on Facebook and places like that, and they're voicing their discontent. I would want to hear that. And that's what America's all about, the free flow of ideas. But with these kind of regulations, people are going to be nervous. Again, I'd rather see the Nazi on the street corner, although I don't agree with the Nazi, than to be in a basement making a bomb. So we want to encourage people to speak. Otherwise, you're going to get terrorists.
Yeah, I guess my last question for you, I mean, you just mentioned, John, that you have actually had other veterans, other members of the military come forth and contact you. I know that when Brandon's case first came out, it got a lot of media attention, but most people sort of saw it as a very unique situation. I mean, is this more common than most people think, that people are getting in trouble with the FBI, in trouble with authorities, simply for things that they post?
Yeah, I had a number of veterans groups contact me and say the FBI is investigating them because they're saying anti-government things, which again, the First Amendment allows us to do. But the thing about this is a bigger problem. Civil commitments, the thing that happened to Brandon Robb, arrested, and then he wasn't charged with a crime. It's just what he did, what he said. Over 20,000 occur alone in Virginia each year, these civil commitments, so they can be quite dangerous. What happened to him is we got involved, and it got a lot of press, and he got out. But I'm afraid some people are disappearing.
Yes, a really good point. Constitutional attorney John Whitehead, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.